We are live. What's up, Brandt?
What's up, Andrew? It is another episode of Stand Up Explained. We are coming to you from our homes, and I'm in Denver. Andrew's in, where are you,
Port-
Andrew?
Portland, Oregon.
I
No one
almost
says
said
Oregon.
I almost said Seattle for some reason. I was like, you back
You
home
never
in
know.
Seattle? On this week's episode, we will be discussing what makes something hacky. That is a bad word in this comedy world we live in.
Have you ever been accused of being hacky? Has anyone called you hacky or said something you're doing is hacky?
Yes, many times, and at
It
points in my
hurts.
career, they were right, but I didn't know. I think I'll say this right off. I don't know if you should call somebody hacky in the beginning because you might just not know. In my defense, we didn't have a good comedy mentorship. Maybe the comics above us weren't that great, so we didn't. And I started in Vegas, so everybody was doing the same hacky jokes. Like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas unless it's herpes, stuff like that. So I don't think I knew not to be hacky till a couple years in.
Well, okay, so I guess we should back up then.
Yeah, I'm
So
sorry. Go ahead.
what does hacky mean, I guess, would be a good question if you're new to comedy or interested in stand-up. And I would say hacky is just like an unoriginal joke or unoriginal premise that it's been done or has been done so much that it's just so familiar to any comedian. So you mentioned the what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Perfect example. It's been done to death. And I think the hard part is knowing when it's been hacked, because at some point somebody wrote that joke originally, right?
Yeah.
And then it wasn't hacky the first time,
Yeah.
But then it's just once you recognize it, because crowds are going to be slow to understand. Crowds will still laugh. To this day, they might still laugh at a joke like that, right? So crowds are going to be the last ones to catch up. So the only way really, if something's hacky or not is either watching a lot of comedy or just hanging out with comics a lot.
Yeah, so that joke would do great in Vegas. It's an awful joke. It's the epitome of hacky, that the stays in Vegas one. But here's the thing, that just thinking off the top of my head, the problem with hacky stuff when you're starting out is no one tells you something's hacky. They just call you hacky.
Right.
which is so hopefully this will help you guys explain it, because it hurts. It's probably the worst thing in comedy is stealing. If you're known as a thief in comedy, that's that's the worst. You're pretty much done. But hacky, you can still stick around, but it just, so much of this is being respected by your peers, I think. And that's the one that hurts for sure. That's, of all the stuff that I've been called, that one I hated.
Right. Well, and I think it's the hacky comes from the hack, like a hack. And there's hacks in every profession, in politics, there's a political hack, right? Or magic. I assume there's hacks in magic or whatever. But then I think in comedy, it's just that thing where it's you're a hack if it feels like you could just mail away for your act and you just got back this generic how to be a stand-up act, right? And you're here's here's the jokes about Vegas, here's the jokes about traveling that everybody does, here's the thing about Tinder, here's the thing about and you get this whole kit that is going to work with crowds, because the crowds have kind of heard it before and they're conditioned to already laugh at this stuff because they've already heard it, right? And they're and that doesn't, and it can work, but it will hold you back long term, because it's not interesting or original. Especially, I think stuff can work in crowds that won't then translate on video or YouTube or TV. People will have a much more critical eye once it gets on the internet or on TV or on Netflix or something than it does. I can't tell you how many times people will call big name comedians, I don't want to call anybody out, but huge name comedians, we'll see it the Laugh Factory or something, and they'll crush and just destroy, and crowds will come out thinking they saw God, right? And that same comic will do a Netflix special, and then all the reviews are and it wasn't as funny as I thought. I think they're funnier on their podcast or whatever. And it's like, it's because the stuff doesn't hold up to the standard. And
Yeah.
that's why I think if you have too much hacky stuff, it doesn't hold up long term.
Yeah. So, I mean, a perfect example is going back to that Vegas joke. If you see that Vegas joke when you're in Vegas on vacation, that joke might hit with you. Like, oh, yeah, we're in Vegas. But if you're in Columbus, Ohio, and you see that Vegas joke,
right,
you're like, oh, my God, that's what is a sophomore in high school. And like,
yeah, if you're at home watching TV and you see that Vegas joke, you're like, what year is it?
yeah, exactly.
You know? But
So, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say that. So like people will go, well, why not just be like, why not? Well, one, because you want to do some. If you're doing comedy, you're like your favorite comics, aren't going to be big hacks, and why would you want to do that? Even because like sometimes the defense you get from comedians like, well, it works,
Yeah.
It's like, well, like a lot of stuff works, you could wear a dress on stage if you're a dude, and that would get a laugh. It doesn't mean there's anything funny about it,
Yeah.
Like
well, there's like a perfect example is every year you'll see a comic does something like with pull off pants and they end up in a thong, or something like that was a thing growing up from when I was starting out. And then that would work every time, but you'd be like, oh, and then after you've seen it once, you're like, okay, here we go. We're going to do this joke and he's going to pull his pants off and he's going to be in a thong. And that's like, but you're like, that's the dumbest thing ever.
Man, I knew a guy who did that exact same thing in Seattle where I started, and he was kind of like a local feature headliner, borderline headliner, and he would big closer was the thong, and he'd dance around and all this stuff. Well, one night it was an open mic, at the comedy club, home club, and everyone's just doing 5 minutes, but then no comics came. Like back then, it wasn't like comedy isn't like it was now. So I think there's only like 5 or 6 comics for the whole mic. And most of us were like really new. So we only had like 10 minutes, So the guy who was running the bar, he was like, hey, Jeff, would you mind doing like 45 and I'll give you a beer or something? And because they had a big crowd. And so he does it. And at the end, he does the thong thing. But then it occurred to me later, I was like, man, so he just wears that thong because he thought he was only going to do 5 minutes. So he just wears that thong every day just in case.
Yeah.
just in case. It's called into action. He's like Superman. He's just always got the suit underneath.
Well, and it's usually like an American flag thong or something. It's like he probably has one of them. So if he does,
I mean, I don't know the laundry situation. Yeah. I don't know.
So yeah, that's like a perfect example of like, to me, like the hacky stuff. And like you said, you can do it and it'll do good, but it's in the long run. To me, the most success I've had is from people vouching for me. And if other comics think you're a hack, you're not going to get vouched for a lot. I think that would be the discouraging thing.
And also like, so there's all the borderline stuff, right? There's all the stuff is like, well, I don't think why is that hacky? I don't think it's hacky. And you can argue about it all you want, but if you even have if you're like writing it and you have any instinct at all, like, has this been like done a bunch, or if people kind of cover this already, or is this getting a laugh and I don't even know why it's getting a laugh? I don't even know what's funny about it, but if people laugh at this part, then you got your answer already. Just write something else, and you'll be better served, because the more like, if you're just writing stuff that's truly your unique perspective or original, then you're never going to have this problem. You're never going to have to worry about it.
That's the best. That I would say that's the exact same thing I was going to say. If you just write unique, if you write about your own life, no one can call that a hack.
Right.
Like if you just do like, so we're recording these during the quarantine. And for example, when the quarantine ends, the hack jokes are going to be like toilet paper jokes. Like my dog was so happy the quarantine, and that's, I don't know.
We can already predict it because like Twitter and stuff, you already know, no one's been on stage, but we already know what would be an eye roll from us. Right. Yeah. Like, and it's those ones you said, like anything about toilet paper or the dogs or, whatever, doing
just
the dishes.
I'm trying to think. I was doing them for my girlfriend the other day. I was like, when we come out of this, you're going to hear these 10 premises. And you know what? She laughed at all of them, just like you said. Yeah. But it's just like, oh, they're not.
But I think the key is to go deeper, right? So it's like you could say, oh man, you know who was really happy with this quarantine? My dog. They thought they didn't know what happened, but they just didn't want it to end, whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's gonna be
That's
awful,
what everyone
right?
is.
It's very hacky. But if you have a dog and you have like a actual specific thing that happened with the dog, or like just go one step past that, because maybe you really want to write a joke about your dog during quarantine. Well, what actually happened? What was unique or different? And then like try and go past the first thought, because then you have the ultimate defense. If someone's like, oh, that's hacky, then you can just always go, well, that really happened to me, or whatever I said.
Yeah.
Like if you're making stuff up, or you're just like grabbing from the hive mind of other comics, or just not even comics, but just regular people who came up with that same observation. Like you never want to do jokes that just could be like the funny guy at the office.
Well, a perfect example is
come up with.
You don't want to do a joke that's a meme.
Yeah, there you go.
It's going to be a meme, or it's probably already a meme. Is like that. That's kind of the new hack. I would say when I watched, I was like, oh, he's just up there telling memes. That's shit I see on Facebook that my girlfriend giggled at. Like that's not what you want, because those are just simple jokes that somebody wrote, and you're gonna just not get any credit for it because it's eventually gonna become a meme, and you're gonna get, and then they're just telling meme jokes.
Yeah, I mean, like especially now, that's a good point that I haven't really thought about. But like in this world where like uncles are just emailing people 50 different internet jokes a day, right? Like that's all the more reason to think past the first kind of connection or the first thought and go deeper and do something weirder, more complicated, or just at least unique and original to you. Because why else do stand up? Like stand up, you can get across more complicated, subtle ideas than on a meme. You can't really get that across on a meme. And so don't do the stuff that you could get across on a meme in stand up. Save stand up for like the complicated, interesting stuff. Yeah.
If you think something's hacked, just throw the premise of it into Twitter and something will probably come up. Like there'll be a million. You go, oh,
but I would say even if you're at that point, even if you're like testing it, like Googling to see if someone's done, then it's too late. Then you don't even have to spend the time. Here's the test. If you think you should check, then just keep going. Go past that thought and go to the next. I'm not saying like abandon the premise altogether, but I'm just saying whatever the first thought was, go, okay, then what? Or what's the next connection or something you can make? But
yeah, because like I said earlier, no one's ever going to tell you you're hacky. They're just going to talk shit about you.
Right, and what is that? Why? I guess it's just everybody's afraid of confrontation or whatever. No one wants to be direct.
I'll tell you what it is most people, it's kind of a no-win situation, because if you tell someone they're doing something hacky, then they're going to try to defend it and get defensive of why it's not hacky.
Right.
And then if you have like a writing, like if you said to me, and if you said, hey, Brandt, I wouldn't do that joke, but we've been through the trenches together. It took a long time. But when I first met you, if you're like, I wouldn't do that joke, I'd be like, well, I wouldn't fucking have that mustache, buddy. I don't know. Like, I think it's like people are very protective of their jokes, and and it just stings. So I think, and if you like people, it's hard to be like, hey man, this joke. There's a few people that do it, but
I've almost never done it. I've almost never felt comfortable enough to just go up to someone and be like, I would think about losing that bit. Because to me, it was always like, well, it's not my place, or they're going to figure it out eventually, or they'll get told by somebody. But, honestly, you're probably doing somebody a favor. If you can, you're not doing it to be a dick if you're doing it. Because what I have done a million times in my life is stood in the back of comedy clubs and like gone to guys like you and be like, Jesus Christ, can you believe what this guy's doing? And made fun of whoever's on stage. I mean, that's the funnest thing to do in the world.
That's what everybody's doing. No one's ever going to tell you, but they're going to talk about it.
And there's nothing more fun, honestly. It is like the greatest. So
yeah, I think, I mean, it's just generic advice, but it'd be the advice anyone tells you. You want to write unique. You want to write something about yourself, because and just for us, for example, Andrew and I are 6 foot tall white guys. Sometimes we're very similar, like a lot of times the show is 5-6 foot tall chubby white guys with different kinds of facial hair. The more if four of them have a toilet paper joke and then you have something different, that's you want to stand out and be talking about you, where people are like, one of those guys had like a cat dog joke, and one of them had like he was right, everybody, a lot of babies are going to come out 9 months after quarantine. Like those jokes are just but they're going to be like, someone did that joke, we laughed, but we don't know which joke it was. Where they're going to be like, no, remember that dude, and the dude, he had a mustache. Oh yeah, that Andrew guy, he told that story about that. That was like, I couldn't believe that story. That was so funny. Or
right. And like, yeah, there's just so many advantages. It's so you're not just like, I think that's a key point too. It's like, you're not just avoiding hack stuff because it's honorable or because there's some weird code among stand-ups. It's actually like better for you long term. Like you could go, it's like, maybe it's a little harder, or, you know, you might have a punchline and then it's like deep down, you know, like this is kind of hacky, you know, but you keep it because it gets a good laugh and it's just in a good spot and I don't want to lose it. But in the long term, you're just doing yourself a favor by cutting that and trying to replace it with something better, or just losing the joke or whatever. And it's going to force you to write more, it's force you to be more creative, and just, it'll get you farther in your career, you know?
yeah. And that's more, the further along with your career, you'll be able to recognize it. Like I said, when you're just starting out, I'm not saying you should be hacky, but you might not know long term. Maybe even when you're starting out, if you go, I don't know, this one's not, I'm going to try it. And like, because it's just so hard. I don't want you to overanalyze when you're starting.
No.
I can't come out there, I'm going to be a hack. This is kind of like just explaining what it'll become. And no one judges. I would never judge. It's the guys, to be really called a hack, it's the guys doing it so long, when you're like, you can't even really be a hack until you're considered.
That's part of it. That's part of it. And so, yeah, I think the reason why we're talking about this, I don't think is because like, I wouldn't ever call any person who's only been doing stand-up 1 year like a hack. I think it's almost impossible, because just, you know, you're just, like you said, you're figuring it out. But I think that word and term, and it gets thrown out so much that people might wonder like, well, what is hacky? Or like, how do I know if I'm being hacky? And I think it gets two things. One, what you just said is for sure true. Like, usually a hack is someone who's just been doing their same act for 30 years and they have not updated it. And so when they started 30 years ago, those jokes probably were all fresh and original and cool and interesting. But then by not updating your act, you just become a hack, right? And if you're not writing and you're doing the jokes that are 30 years old, that's a bad combination. And then secondly, I forgot what secondly was going to be, but just don't write jokes, I guess.
Yeah. Well, what you just said is like, if you just keep writing and trying to write about yourself, you don't really have to worry about a hack. And the more you do it,
right,
just the more you are around, you're going to be like, oh God, this is exactly what if you didn't know what a hack was, hopefully at this point you're like, oh, I kind of have a couple people in my head that are like, oh, I see exactly. They're doing the same shit. They're not taking any chances. They're not being creative. They're not writing new stuff, which is all the stuff that what you should do to be successful.
Right. Well, and then I think that's the other thing too. Like, people fall into this thing where they want to, then you get like to year 2 or year 3 and you want to call everything hacky. You think you're the hack police, and anybody who mentions airplane, you're like, that's hack or whatever. And you're like, no, that's not what we're doing. We're not taking like entire subjects off the table. We're not saying you can't joke about Las Vegas, right? We're saying this specific joke has been done to death. And it's not just, I think it's way less subjects and it's more like structure. Like there's a joke structure where it's like, they told me to get lost. And I was like, thanks, preacher. You know what I mean? Like, they told me I was too old for this. Like, okay, thanks, mom. And when you reveal that the person at the end is and that's just a joke. Like, you might think you've written, and then early on, I would never tell someone who just started, like, cut that joke or whatever. But it's just like one you've seen over and over, and that hasn't, it can be put into any subject. You could be talking about the Pope, you could be talking about something really interesting, the, global debt or war or whatever. But if you use that structure, I'm gonna, well, that's just a hacky joke,
Yeah, yeah.
like, it doesn't matter what the subject is. Sometimes it's just, you're just stealing this kind of very simple joke structure that's
Yeah. So
uninteresting and been done to death.
like that one, when you said that one popped into my head that I'll see about every 6 months at the open mics, and it'll crush. But it's the one like, yeah, I got a threesome with some twins, my girlfriend, and then the reveal is the twins a dude, and it's like, but I didn't know his twin was going to be a brother, and the crowd are like, I mean, that's some guy's closer. That, for instance, that is who you would call a hack. I know guys that close with that joke, which is just stupid misdirection. Whoever wrote it in the beginning, I mean, it's funny the first time, but you're like, oh, dude, that's like a, you know what, a hack joke would be like street jokes, or like, that's when you're hacked too. If you're doing like,
well, that's the problem with the perfect joke. It's just very easy to replicate, and it's very easy to take and adopt, and so that's why you just got to keep writing jokes and try and make them as unique to you as possible. But people don't really steal that way. People think about stealing, like, dude, oh, someone stole my joke. It's like, I don't think people are cunning enough now. They don't steal, like, and they don't even really think that they're stealing sometimes, but they don't steal word for word jokes, but they will steal like the essence of a joke, and if it happens too many times, it gets really familiar and you just want to avoid it.
The joke, I agree, there's not as many joke thieves as there once was, because there's just too much. You know what ruined it is YouTube will be like, oh no, I told this joke, here it is right here.
Well, in YouTube sometimes, again, people can be overzealous. There's like the joke police are out there thinking everybody stole and like, well, no, sometimes two people really do have the same like parallel thinking, and it just comes up. But if that happens more than like 4 or 5 times, then we can just move on. We don't need to do this joke anymore,
Yeah. Well, or if it happens to you a bunch of times, if people continue to have similar jokes to you, you're probably writing hack jokes. You know what I mean? Because there shouldn't.
But that's where you want to just reach a little deeper.
Yeah.
And go past that first thought. That's what I would say. Like,
yeah. Because like, so here's like a hack joke that I did, but I felt like I did it first, but it was just Twitter. Like, I think Twitter, you can just throw jokes on, but like the second like Tiger King came out, I posted like Carol Baskin killed Jeffrey Epstein. People love that, whatever. Then like a month later, Eric Andre posts it, and it gets like 1 million retweets and stuff.
Right.
And I saved it in my phone. But by any mean do I think Eric Andre stole my joke? No, it was a hacky, very simple joke. I got to Twitter with it first, but that doesn't mean it's not like, you know what I mean? Like that is like just but in my head, like I'm not coming out of quarantine saying that joke, because I think that'll be like Tiger King's perfect. That's going to be another hack. I took the stimulus and I bought a tiger with my $1,200. That is a hack joke that hopefully you'll be able to recognize and go, okay, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, and like, I think that the way because sometimes I see like big, huge comics, like people who are revered and legendary, but then they'll come out with like a new special and they'll do some bit and you're like, this has been done like 50 times. What are they doing? And then you just realize, oh, they're just not watching comedy. They got so big and famous and they don't need to, and they're not hanging out in clubs, and they're also, you have an ego when you're that big and famous where you're like, well, if I thought of it, I must be the first person to have thought of this. No one is as smart and funny as me, and then they just go and do it. And so,
well, yeah, if you think your peers on a small level won't tell you you're a hack,
I just saw famous,
no one will tell you a hack.
Yeah, right? Like, no one's telling like Seinfeld. I saw, like, Seinfeld's great. He's hilarious. And I just before we're recording this, I saw a clip. He has a new Netflix special out. And it's this great, he kills in this bit. And it's like a 1 to 2 minute bit that they released online. It was about the buffet, right? and he does this long thing, and most of it's really funny and stuff I hadn't heard. But then part of it was just like,
wait, let me try to guess.
Yeah, let's see if we can do it.
So if you say buffet and I say hacky, I would say something of like, but then they just expect you to pile all this stuff on your plate, and you got like this here and this here, and like, well, mashed potatoes isn't supposed to be touching Jello, it's supposed to be touching shrimp, supposed to be touching a donut hole, supposed to be touching beef jerky, supposed to be. Then you say something absurd like, and I'm carrying this big old plate full of all this stuff. It's like, I don't know, but that's
that's about it. I mean, so it was like, and this is where I've literally seen this part of it done before, but it's like, no one would order this at a restaurant. I wouldn't go, oh, I'll have a waffle, maple syrup, 3 shrimp cocktails, and can you top it off with chocolate sauce or whatever, you know?
Yeah, something.
And so it's like the idea of ordering that from a waiter. And so he's literally doing that. The rest of the bit, though, there's lots of stuff. It was all about like portion control and like, people, we're animals, you can't expect us to be able. So it was like something I was like, okay, I haven't heard that take on a buffet. So to me, yes, you can do jokes about the buffet. If you have a joke about the buffet, you can do it, but there's a chance that you're going to say something someone's already said like 50 times, and you're going to want to drop that. But like, if you're Seinfeld, no one's telling Seinfeld.
Yeah, no one. Like you said, Seinfeld.
And if they do, then he's probably just going to go, well, I'm going to do it better. So, and I've never seen that, so I don't care. And guess what? Everyone's going to see my version. And
no one's going to believe.
1,000 times more people are going to see my version than ever saw any other version. So what do I care?
Yeah. Yeah. So something like, I mean, there's times when like, and you touched on it, there's going to be people that think they're the hack police, which is the worst. So as much as I say people won't tell you you're hacky, I take that back. There will be a few people that'll tell you everything you do is hacky. The way you hold the microphone, but they're the worst anyway. But
well, and that's another thing. Like you know, humping a stool is hacky, right? Like,
yeah,
you don't need to hump a stool. Everybody's humped a stool or whatever. But you also don't need to go tell a dude who's humping a stool or a lady who's humping a stool. You don't need to go tell them that that's hacky, because they know. If you're, there's some things you just know. And if they're humping a stool, like, they know what they're doing, and they've come to acceptance with it. They just understand that that's what they want to do. So you can't. There's some things you can just like go, all right, it's not for me, but whatever.
I mean, over time, I think the best, like you said earlier, you'll just know. If you think it's bad, if you're even thinking about Googling it, you'll just go, okay, I can do better than this. If I don't want to be called hacky, I can change this.
And I also think I mentioned it earlier, but it's so true. It's like, if something's getting a laugh and you're not even sure why, like, it's just like a word that you use, or like, or you're just saying something that's like a cliche or something, and it just gets a laugh, and you're like, I don't even know why that's funny, but they always laugh when I say it, so I'm going to keep saying it. Like, that's a red flag. Like, I always try to cut stuff like that, because early on, I would have a few things like that, and I was like, I don't know why they laugh when I say this, but I say it and they laugh. And so, but you don't want to be doing stuff that's like not funny to you, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the main thing. Once you realize what hack is, you'll know, like just what you said, I guess that's another reason you don't tell people they're hack, because they know. And I know when I was doing stuff that's hacky, and no one comes and tells me, but I know, like, oh, why'd I do that? You know?
Yeah. And again, like,
you know what part of it is just simple tricks of the trade that you learn over time, that you maybe years 3, 4, 5, you just do, that you've seen someone else do. And then you go, what you thought was like a transition or something, later you go, that's hacky. That isn't, like, you know.
Right. And you do pick things. I think people can pick things up like through osmosis or something, and you don't even realize you've picked it up, and then you do. But, you know, just, I think the other thing is like, you want to tape yourself, and then you don't want to be defensive about it. Like, if someone does challenge you or says something and they come to you the right way about it, like, just be honest and really, you know, because it's so hard to do. I mean, anytime anybody questions anything I do in my act or a joke or something, the first thing I want to do is just like shut down or tell them to fuck off, or, you know.
Over time, you'll get the guys you trust. For me, like, there's definitely people that I respect, or like, if you said something to me, I would listen to you. But then there's also, but I think that'll just come over time. But it's good
Yeah.
to have those people around you that you know, if I felt like I had something hacky, I can call you and go, hey, what do you think of this? Which I've done. And you're like, I wouldn't. Or you'd be like, yeah, no, you're overthinking it. Because you don't want to get in that hack brain, what you said, where you're worried about everything's hack. It's just something where
No.
you're just like, if you believe it's something you wrote and it's unique to you and it's fresh, you're never going to have a problem.
Right. Yeah. And absolutely do not overthink it. I think both of us are just talking about like big, obvious trends and just, you just want to be putting the effort in when you're writing. You just, you know, if it comes too easy, it's probably a sign right there.
And I think you'll know, like for me, when I write something that I know is not even close to hack, then that's when I love it even more. Like you said, you'll know.
Oh,
you'll
yeah.
be like, I can't wait. If you have a joke, you're like, oh, I'll probably try this one.
Or a great way to write
like, I can't wait to tell this one.
And a great way to write is to just try and go against the grain of whatever is the conventional wisdom on that thing anyway. So it's like, if you had like, I'm trying to think of an example of whatever our hack premises were, but like if your thing was at the buffet, no one would order what you order at a buffet, but then you had to take like, you know what, actually when I go to a buffet, I just get regular dinner. I don't put like chocolate cake on my shrimp pasta. I just get shrimp pasta and then I eat it and then I go get dessert like I would order at a restaurant. What is wrong with everybody else? Why are you guys putting all this shit on your plate? I mean, that would be a funnier take, you know, than so just that can work sometimes. So just you see comics, you know, you see comics going the same way over and over and over again, and it starts to piss you off and just go, actually, what are they talking about? What if it is this other way, you know?
Well, there's nothing I like more the misdirection of that when someone is going to, I'm like, and I'm sitting there going, oh God, we're going down the same road. And then we just go I like that. Cause I thought you were taking me here. I mean, I love misdirection anyway, but when it's on something that's when I think you're going down the hack road and then you flip it to like the creative, I'm like, oh, I like that. I didn't see that coming at all. Cause sometimes you can see the misdirection, but when you misdirect me on a hack joke, and then I'm like, I like that.
Totally. Yeah. So it's like, I think it's like you said, it's like you don't want to overthink it, but if you're curious or if you're like, well, what is hacking? What do I know? I think we kind of addressed it, but yeah, I think especially in the beginning, you don't want to worry about it too much, but I think that's what it is. You know, it's like, it's just something that's been done.
Yeah. That's what I always say. If it'll fit on like a popsicle stick, and you could imagine that, because that's the first jokes I got was eating popsicle sticks, and it was there. I was like, if this is a popsicle stick joke, like get rid of it, because I get to give notes. They do like a new talent thing here, and just what you were saying, like I guess it's just so hard to tell someone that they're hacky, because even when I'm doing notes, I beat around the bush, like, hey, try to be a little more unique. Tell me about your life. That joke's kind of been done before. When if I was being honest, I'd be like, yeah, that joke is hack. And if you tell at the back of the room, we'll be like, this dude is such a hack. I guess it's just hard to shit on people's dreams, even though they're the same hack dreams that the other 50 comics had.
I know. And plus, just people just don't take it. It's just hard to give advice when you know it's not going to be taken very well.
Yeah. Well, the good news is, I hope we answered your question. We don't know any of you guys, so reach out to us, Brandt, Tobler, and Andrew Slater. If you have a question, if you're doing something hack, we will. If we don't know you, I can be honest with you. If it's not face to face,
you can try and catch us. You know, maybe we're doing something hack out there, and let us know. We got to be cool about it now with all that shit we talk.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably block you after, but we'll take it out.
Definitely.
All right, that is another episode of Stand Up Explained. If you want to go check out our acts, we have plenty of stuff on YouTube, and if you think we're doing something hacky, we're open. Send us questions, or if you have questions about anything. All we ask, if you can, hit the subscribe button. We got new episodes coming out every week. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and comment. iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're getting it, so we can we can move up these charts and we can keep doing these for you guys. So as always, thank you guys for listening. I'm Brandt Tobler.
I'm Andrew Slater.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.